the Instructor podcast with Terry Cook, talking with leaders, innovators, experts and game changers about what drives them.
Welcome to the Instructor Podcast Green Room Edition. This is a show where we cover all the latest news and hot topics from within our industry. As always, I am your jolly northern host, Terry Cook. I'm delighted to be here, but you'll be delighted that it's not just me. I am joined by the man behind the Driving Instructor and Trainers Collective and Fairies Has Explained. Some people call him an Ayatollah, but I call him Chris Bensted. How are we doing, Chris?
I'm good, thank you. I'm just recovering from the fact that it's been a bank holiday and I don't know what day of the week it is. I'm
recovering from the fact it took me 4 attempts to start to get the intro right for this. But no, big thank you for joining me today. We've got some interesting stuff coming up later. We're going to be talking a bit about CPD and what is CPD, because that's reared its head again, mainly or partly because I've been rearing it. But also we bring in a new feature into the show later on where we're going to talk about some of the upcoming events over the next couple of months. So no one has an excuse not to attend or say that they didn't know about them when things have been promoted for 6 months or 12 months in advance. But before that, we have got some news. And I think the biggest news of all the news in the entire world, Chris, is probably that this is the 40th edition of the Green Room. Bit of a milestone.
Yes, absolutely. It's lucky we're not 18 or we'd have been called up for national service.
Exactly. And if only someone had thought of that and could pull it off in an intro rather than giggling fits, then I might have done all right. But either way, so congratulations to the Green Room, and also congratulations to Phil Cowley, who also turns 40 this week.
Happy birthday, Phil.
40s all around. I do just want to take a moment, actually, just to give a little thanks to you, Christopher. Because without you, there may not have been a Green Room. You know, you first came on as like a bonus segment. You were the treat for people on season 1 of the Instructor podcast. You did the news segment at the end.
That was the garnish that no one wanted.
You were the cherry on the cake. And then we decided to make it a bit of a show, and then it's rolled on and been a thing, and now kind of the regular guest and so on. But yeah, it's been pretty cool on it doing 40 of these.
Yeah, no, it's been good fun. And I think it's been a lovely barometer and whatever metronome for the industry. So it's kind of kept track of everything that's been going on and kept everyone aware of the feel of things that's coming through. So yeah, long may it continue.
I agree. I reckon we're going to get to at least 41.
That's all right then. Good.
Yeah.
Good.
But no, it has been good. And thank you guys for listening and sharing and contributing and all that kind of stuff. And we're planning on taking July off. Planning on taking June off and back in July. I may have these months right, I'm not sure. But when we come back, we'll have some new fun stuff going on as well. But you did kind of touch on it there, Chris, better than I attempted to earlier on, about the couple of big pieces of news that maybe just touch slightly on driving instructors. So there is a general election being called on the 5th of July, and I don't want to get into that too much. It's not, but it's worth mentioning because anyone that's listened to the show for a while will know my feelings about this current incarnation of the Conservative Party. So I'm just going to say this, and I'll just put this out there, that please go and vote, because we need to get this shower of shit, callous, horrible government out. That's all I'm going to say. If you disagree, I apologise, but I stand by that. But there was also the introduction of national service, which has been put forward, that if the Conservatives get back in power, they will bring in national service. So, Chris, this could be a really, really stupid question, but I'm going to ask it anyway because I'm intrigued. If national service was brought in, now I know that there's a caveat of people can do weekends rather than national service or whatever. Would that mean there's an entire generation of 18-year-olds who aren't going to have driving lessons?
It would be really interesting. I think that there's potentially, if we're looking at tests moving to 18 as well, there's a lot of pieces moving at that point. So, if these things do happen, and there's lots of ifs, it will change the dynamics of what we do. Will it be any different to when no one had any money, so they went, I'll leave it till after uni, and we said, well, we're not going to have any work. We still did. It didn't get that tight. It's going to be down to the brass tacks, isn't it? It's going to be down to exactly how it's delivered, how it's communicated, and we'll see. I don't think we need to panic yet.
No, I agree. You know, I'm glad you answered that way, because it makes me feel like it wasn't a stupid question. you know when you have a thought and you're like, oh, is this daft or is this sensible? But you're right. You know, if you look at driving, the age for driving tests potentially being moved, which I know is something that you've been an advocate of, and you look at potential national service comes in, to me, that just shows how easy things can change. So when you get all these people that talk about, well, I don't need to market because of demand and that kind of stuff, it just shows maybe something could change, you know, flip on a dime, as they're saying, I think, in America. And you need to be ready to combat that. And I think that now is the time to start. Those things may not happen, but I think it's interesting it could. I don't think anyone expected Rishi Sunak to come out and say in the rain, oh, we're having a general election on the 5th. And I don't think anyone expected them to say, oh, by the way, we're going to bring back national service. So these things can happen. I think, unless you've got any other thoughts on this, Chris, before I move on, the only other point I want to make, and I've posted about this because I do think it's relevant, and I don't want to get into graduated driving licenses too much, but the reason, or part of the reason why the Conservatives say they don't want the graduated driving license is because it restricts the freedoms of young people, but they will then bring in national service for 18-year-olds. And I just think that about epitomizes what their thoughts are. Is there anything you want to touch on around that before we get stuck into proper driving school stuff?
National service is going to be sold on the giving of an opportunity to young people. So maybe that's what we need to look at as well. Maybe we need a different sales pitch. We're not taking things away from people. We're giving them the opportunity to learn for a year before they can take their test. It's all spin, totally. But that spin makes a massive difference. You know, I live in a London borough. We've just seen Sadiq Khan come back in as the mayor of London. Never thought that was going to happen. Despite the figures, I was convinced that he couldn't, come back from ULEZ, having upset so many people and cost people so much. And yeah, he's back. I think you don't know until you've got it down on paper and you see how they spin things. But maybe that's what we need to look at as well. We're very big on this. It's because of the danger. It's because of people dying. But maybe we need to go, what are the positives? Not just they won't die, but actually try and look at some of those and go better opportunities and lower insurance and focus on that. The example that would be Pass Plus. People did it because they got cheaper insurance. And once the cheaper insurance disappeared, it was much harder to sell as a concept. So yeah, maybe we need a bit more sizzle to sell.
What's interesting in what you said there is that when you listen to the people that are heavily advocating for graduated driving licenses, they do talk about the positives. It's when it gets to other people. So you look at the government, that's when they put the negative spin on it. When you get to people that hear the peripheral of what's been said. And, I spoke to Chris Lowen recently, who she created the petition for graduated driving licenses. And she was really regretful of the way she worded it on that petition. Some of the things, I think she included nighttime driving in there on the actual petition. Now, that wasn't petitioning for nighttime driving. It was an example of something that could be on there. But she was like, that's one of the things that aren't as big. It's one of the things that almost doesn't matter. This is what she was saying.
Yeah.
But it's one of the things that people find most offensive. And she's like, I wish I hadn't put them on there. And the big thing that I think people don't realize with that is we can't say what's going to be on a straightforward driving license. We have to get it in Parliament for that debate. And I didn't realize this until recently. I used to be a bit like, well, why? I had Lucy Straker on the show from Break, and I asked her, why haven't we got a definitive, this is what a GDL will look like? And she's like, we can't. We have to get in for debate, and then we get it amended. And I think that's part of the problem. But I don't want to get too much into graduate driving licenses because we've spoke about that quite a lot recently. And I just think the thing I would say, actually, is for anyone that's got any concerns, don't just go, oh, yeah, but, or yeah, but, or yeah. Actually look into it. The whole thing around the common one I see is, who's going to enforce it? Well, to me, you can't say that because that means you could never, ever bring in a new law. We might as well remove laws to free up police to enforce a smaller selection of laws. But anyway, I am getting on my soapbox there. let's move on then, because there has been a bit of news this month, and most of it's revolved around the events. And but actually, just before we get into the events, season 7, I kind of touched it then. Season 7 of the Instructor podcast was all around road safety, and it's the first time I've themed an entire season, and that has just finished. And it has by far been the best season I've done, the best produced, the best content, the best. Everything from me, the guests I've had on previous episodes have all been superb, but I felt like I've done better this year for a variety of different reasons. And one thing I'm really proud of, Chris, in particular, and I wanted to mention this, is that one thing you've always said to me is that driving instructors don't know where to start with this stuff.
Yep.
They now do. There's 11 episodes there. They could pick any single one of those episodes and find somewhere to start, whether it's a resource they can give to students, whether it's something to look into further and research, whether it's something to bring in lessons, whether it's a way to bring road safety into driving schools, whether it's now knowing what Vision Zero means in the SAFE system and graduated driving licenses. You could pick any one of those episodes and go and find somewhere to start. But it's now finished. I'm taking a bit of a break. I don't know when the podcast will be back. I'm very tired. But if it comes back, it's going to be based around themes again. It's going to be another theme. I've got a couple of ideas in mind, and I'll probably put it out there publicly what would people want. But I'm going to ask you, Chris, what themes would you like to see on potential episodes or seasons, I should say?
I was thinking about, what haven't we had? What problems do we have? It's always that thing, isn't it? If you look at where the pain points are. And the thing that I've spoken to instructors the most about since launching the WalkBack, and talking to instructors about mental health and their own health and everything else, eating, sensibly, not even healthily, just sensibly, often actually remembering to eat, those kind of things, making eating accessible to you without then ending up at McDonald's every day, that kind of thing. So just the life stuff, I think would be a really interesting area to touch on. And just going back to the early days, your knack of finding guests that were nothing to do with driving instructors. The only contact they'd had with the industry was that they'd probably had one, and I think some of them hadn't even had that. I'd like to see what you can pull out your hat regarding the stuff that's nothing to do with teaching, just to do with us, and that side of things. And I think that would be my shout.
I like that. We were talking before the show about how I'm a bit tired and I need to take a break to get some creative juices flowing. You've just started those juices flowing, Chris. I'm thinking if I can get a Tai Chi expert on and tie that into driving instructors, then, challenge accepted. But I had ideas for like mental health and mindset and physical health. I had another one for how we learn. I thought that could be an interesting season, how we learn, that kind of stuff. But we'll see. All right, let's move on then, because there's been some events. I say this has kind of been the news of the month, if you like, because a variety of events, and I've attended 3 of them. So there was the RoadPeace last mile walk, which tied in with the RoadPeace challenge that we managed to raise over 750 quid for. In fact, you know what? A little point on that. When I say we raised over 750 quid, what I mean is Les Hopkinson started the RoadPeace challenge, and some of us have supported it, and we've walked and raised money. But what I've also liked is other driving instructors have raised funds themselves that isn't gone into our pot. So there has been thousands of pounds raised by driving instructors, just not all collectively. So that's really cool. There was also the Intelligent Instructor and ADINJC convention, which was a 1 or 2 day event, depending on when you went. And then there was the Young Driver Focus, which was a 1 day event held in London. So I've attended all 3 of those, and what we could do is I could let you play with your Rubik's Cube for a bit, Chris, and I could just talk for half an hour, or I can let you ask me a few questions around them.
So I've got red on top at the minute. No. I just from my perspective, as someone who tries to go to everything in the past, because I don't know if it's FOMO or interest or a bit of both. I haven't this year, and it was a really weird feeling. So this is my opportunity to kind of, engage a bit without having been there. So which one we're starting with?
Well, one thing I will mention is that when we attended the ICE Live event last year and we spoke about should instructors attend, you just said, we'll just send Terry and get him to report. I think we've kind of inadvertently done that. Take your pick. You've got RoadPeace, you've got the convention, or you've got the Young Driver Focus.
RoadPeace is the one that I know the least about. Just everything surrounding it, really. I'm aware of it. It's on my radar. I've read the webpage, that kind of thing. But it's not something I've massively engaged with. So what was the point of it?
Basically, in 2022, which at the minute is the last year we have the statistics for, 1,766 people died on UK roads, which is quite a lot. And so they were raising money and awareness because RoadPeace, the national, they support victims of been in traffic collisions, and they were raising funds and awareness, and they were doing it by collectively walking 1,766 steps. That was the idea over this week. Mm-hmm. They did that on day 2 collectively. And I know that a lot of people behind it, but Rebecca Morris, who's the director of comms, can't say comms, director of communications. I sound like a yuppie. Director of communications there. She was she was surprised at how quickly we broke it. I think she was nervous that will we actually reach this number of miles? And we did it on day 2, and I forget the number now, but I think they've got over 10,000 steps altogether. And weirdly, they're more proud of that than the money that's been raised. But it's all in honor of those people. And part of that is a group that's been set up by Sharon Huddleston, who's been on the Instructor podcast. Her daughter Caitlin died in a car crash in 2019. I might have that date wrong. Apologies if I have. Set up a group called the Forget Me Not Families, which is the families of people that have lost loved ones in crashes, and quite a few of those were there. So basically the week was walking and raising money, and then the last day we went down to a war memorial museum in somewhere, and my mind's gone blank for where it was. But it was a beautiful place, and I'll put links in the show notes for this stuff. But it was a beautiful place, and the group of us, I think there was 65. I counted. We all collectively walked that last mile, and then at the end of it, and I didn't know this was going to happen. Admittedly, we got to sit down and listen to some of the families speak, which was both heartwarming and heartbreaking. You can have both at the same time. So that was the gist of it, basically.
It sounds like they far outdid what they thought they were going to. And so did you, because you've done better than me. You remembered 2 names. You're allowed to not remember the place as well, because I this is when people ask me these questions, I struggle. So, and having sat through, when people have recounted loss of family members and things more times than I care to, I know what you mean. It's, you there, but for, the grace of whatever. It's, I've shed plenty of tears in, various different rooms through those. So, are they planning to do it again next year? Do you know if that's it's going to be an annual thing?
Yeah, I'm not sure what they've done in previous years, and I've got Rebecca Morris coming back on to have a chat about what went on, basically. And I'm not sure what they've done in previous years, but I'm going to ask her. But it has been done before. But I think this is the first one where they've done that final mile, and I know she was really pleased with the number of people that turned up for that and that kind of stuff. So yeah, they are. There's nothing committed yet, but the intention is to do it again. And what I would say is that if you're a driving instructor and part of the reason you do your job is because you want to help reduce the number of people dying on UK roads, whether that's the reason you came in or whether that's the reason you've since adopted, I would suggest going. I really would. It reaffirms that. And you just spoke then about speaking to these people, and I never have before this. It's something that's been quite almost revelatory for me is doing that this season and being around those people and the how brave they are and that kind of stuff. And I'll touch on this actually. I've said this somewhere before, but I'll say it again. Crystal Owen, who I mentioned before, she was speaking on one of the speakers. Now, Crystal Owen lost her son in a crash 6 months ago. And I don't know if anyone remember this actually. It was quite prominent in the news because it was 4 lads that went missing over a few days, and then they found the car basically, and the lads in it. And Chris Lowen was there, and she was struggling to keep it together while she was talking. And it was actually the 6-month anniversary of her son dying on that day. And that clicked for me more than anything else, because it suddenly realised that everyone else there had a 6-month anniversary of their child or loved one dying. And it's like, wow, that's crazy. Yeah. And, I spoke to Sharon Huddleston, as I mentioned before, and when we spoke, she kept it together. She was like, spoke real eloquently, and that's because her daughter's been dead 5 years. Ian Greenwood, whose daughter, he phrased it, my daughter will always, I think it was 7, my daughter will always be 7. Or my daughter will always be this age. I don't want to get her age wrong. My daughter will always be this age. And it's like these people, they lost their children years ago, so they'll never get over it, but maybe it's easier to talk about, whereas Crystal Owen is going through what all these people went through, and that really, it kicked me, it kicked me in the arse. It was like, wow. And part of the reason why I think it would benefit driving instructors, that's going to remind you why you do the job. If that's not why you do the job, and this isn't meant as a criticism, but if that's not why you do the job, then don't go. You won't get anything from it. If you're just here to make some money or run a business or to help people pass a test, that's your prerogative, but you will get nothing from that event at all.
Yeah.
But to go down there and meet these people and speak to these people and see how much they want change, that's really, really cool, really impressive.
Yeah. I think one of my earliest lessons from that was to not take it as criticism. Because I think I sat at the back of a room once, and you could just feel that driving instructors were feeling criticised. You're not doing your job properly, which wasn't the point. The point was we collectively need to do more, that we're not there yet.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it is, I never have the words, which is often rare for me. But yeah, it's, I remember listening to the sister of a girl that got killed in the passenger seat of an unlicensed driver's car. She didn't realize he was unlicensed. And I got the pleasure of speaking to her afterwards, and it was a pleasure. It was painful, but it was absolutely a pleasure, because that has given me resources that I didn't have, because it connected me. And the thing that I've always tried to do is, when these things happen, is to reach out if I know the driving instructor who taught the person who's been killed. Because I think in the same way, then the instructor often gets forgotten. And I remember one horrific one, which was the driving instructor turned up to teach them, and it wasn't a road death. It was a tree had fallen through their caravan they were staying in at the time, while they were having the house renovated rather. And yeah, we are often part of that picture, but we're not necessarily included. So I think anything that allows us to bridge that gap, to be part of the whole picture, absolutely, yeah.
And I think I spoke about this with Lee Jowett recently about this, and I think I used the phrase that we need to admit that we're not always good enough, accept that we're never going to be perfect, and just look to improve. And I think if we can tick all 3 of those boxes, and we're heading in the right direction. But I think there's too many people that don't admit we need to do more. Something I've spoken about quite a bit recently in the premium membership is, are we actually teaching safe driving for life? Now, whether you like that phrase or not, it is irrelevant to the point I'm making. Is I've started using the phrase, we teach aspects of safe driving for life. And the easiest example, and I think people shoot this down pretty quick actually, but the easiest example is nighttime driving, because we're in the summer now. So anyone that's learning now and passes before autumn isn't going to have nighttime lessons. So have we taught safe driving for life, or have we taught safe daytime driving for life? And I think we have to be honest enough to admit that. And I haven't taught 10 p.m. lessons in summer before. I'm starting. I'm doing 2 a month. I'm not enforcing it on people. I'm offering it. And so far, the people that I've suggested to have bit my hand off. They love the idea. And, but I think that we need to look at what we can do more. Again, if that's what you're interested in, if all you're interested in is helping someone pass a test or earning some money, that's not a criticism, then this won't be for you. But I think if you are, we need to take a look and go, what can we do different? But anything else you want to touch or ask about around the RoadPeace stuff, Chris, before we move on?
No, I think that it was a nice, succinct, explanation of what went on. I'm assuming that it'll be nice and easy for us to find next year. That you will be having somewhere we can signpost it.
Yes, roadpeace.org is the website. Pretty sure they've got a mailing list. There'll be links to that in the show notes as always, or you can find it on the website, roadpeace.org. I am planning on doing something else, so I'm currently looking at getting something pretty cool for the Road Safety Week in November, and I'm going to hopefully replicate that for the RoadPeace event next year. I won't go public with that just yet because I'm still playing around with it, but I'll remind me to run that by you after the show, Chris. But yeah, so it's just to repeat, if you can, I would go. I mean, maybe we don't need 40,000 driving instructors down there doing that last mile. That might slightly overkill, but
if only we could.
Yes,
it's we'd take 1,000.
I'd take 10. And I'm being serious when I say that.
Yeah.
Me and Les went last time. Les suggested the charity stuff. I then thought, let's go down on the final day. I didn't publicise the final day. It was there for all to see. I wasn't hiding it, but I didn't publicise it for whatever reason. But I think if we went down with 10 as a representative of that, I think I would recommend it. But let's take a quick pause before we move on to the other ones, and we'll take a moment to set the table, I think, as a slight break there. It feels appropriate. So do you want to take a moment to remind people who you are, Chris, what you have to offer, and why it's so splendid and wonderful?
Yes. So I'm Chris Bensted, and I am co-founder of the DITC, the Driving Instructor and Trainers Collective, which you can find at theditc.co.uk. And we are the signposting platform of the industry. If you don't know where to look and you don't know where to find it, give us a call and we'll point you in the right direction. If we can't, we'll know someone that can. And I am also the theory trainer with a beard, which apparently is my new title, as people are getting to see me on TikTok and Instagram and such. And I provide theory training, the driving instructor without a car.
Well, speaking of your theory training, we recently recorded the first episode of The Theory of Everything with Chris Bensted for my premium members. And I thought I would read you a comment for the feedback I've had from this, because we've got some really lovely feedback on this, by the way. I'm not going to name the person because it is in my private group, and I don't know if they'd want that naming publicly, but the post said, really good this. If I'm totally honest, I nearly brushed past this, and I'm a bit ashamed to say I thought it might be a bit boring, and I've been mentally switching off. No, it doesn't end there. But far from it, I'm very glad I didn't now. I've tried to help with the theory on a few lessons, just theory-based, and felt like a bit like I'm robbing the pupil, just going through the apps with them and then digging into questions that they're struggling with. In future, I'll be looking to the rules for the answers and then looking to the exceptions afterwards. Great resources and info too. All my pupils love TikTok. I just thought that was a lovely little bit of feedback where you see someone's actually properly been impacted by what you've done.
Lovely. No, that's massively appreciated, because sometimes when you say it over and over, you feel boring. So the fact that people are getting some kind of benefit from it, that's what it's there for.
Yeah. And a quick plug, anytime you see something that you think might be dull, test it. The worst that's going to happen is that you'll be proved right. The best that's going to happen is you'll find someone that inspires you. But yes, you are listening to the Instructor Podcast Green Room. I want to point you in the direction of the WhatsApp channel or the email list, or ideally both. You can find links for these in the show notes. The WhatsApp channel is great. It's post all the links up there that I find. Shared knowledgeable instructors' recent post about the proposal that's sent to the DVSA. Shared stuff from the BBC. I've shared episodes. I've shared premium content. Easy, quick way to find links. The email is where I get more in-depth on stuff. It always amuses me, Chris, the emails that make people unsubscribe. always makes me chuckle. What do you expect from the Instructor podcast email? There's going to be emails about the Instructor podcast. Either way. But no, sign up. There is more that comes in there than just advertising a podcast. There is industry news in there as well, keeping you updated with all kinds of cool stuff. And the last thing to mention is just the website. You can find www.theinstructorpodcast.com. Over there as well, you can find links for the WhatsApp and the email list, as well as stuff around the Vision Zero resources, events, premium free trials, all that kind of cool stuff. So www.theinstructorpodcast.com. But let's return back to the events, because there were two more I attended this month that you've been quite busy this month, Chris, for one reason or another, bearing a child and all that kind of stuff. But there was the Intelligent Instructor at NJC convention, and then Young Driver Focus. Which do you want to cover next?
I'm really interested with the NJC because, as I understand it, DVSA were there. And our previous conversation was about Scotland and the fact that DVSA wasn't there. Is that correct?
Don't know if they were at Scotland. Oh, yes. No, you're right. Yes, they weren't. Yeah.
Should they have been at the NJC, and how was it?
The one in Scotland, I am pretty certain was just an ADINJC event. It was pretty certain. The one the convention we're talking about was Intelligent Instructor as well. So you're going to have two different mindsets there. I quite liked them being there this time. It was a couple of little speeches by all and open up for questions. The chaps they had there, people they had there with John Sheridan, who I'd never met before, and I can now understand why people like him and some people don't like him.
He's silver-tongued, is John. I love the guy, but seriously, if you want to get away with something, get him on your side, because he can talk anyone round.
He made a brilliant comment where someone was asking about something to do with training, and whether we agree with the DVSA not getting involved in training or not. John Sheridan turned around and went, "That's down to your trainer. You need to speak to your trainer. If your trainer isn't covering this, your trainer isn't good enough." It might not be in those exact words, but that principle, and I thought, I liked that a lot. It's too easy to go to the DVSA's minimum standards. It was almost, no, he wouldn't say this, I'm sure, but it was almost even going, our standards are too low. This is your trainer's job. And I quite like that. But John Sheridan was I want to say Amanda Lane, but for some reason I feel like I've got that name wrong. But she's been on the podcast before. And then the chap whose name I've forgotten, Nick Taylor, who's the registrar. Yes. He were there. And yeah, I thought that they came across well. I thought they took a lot of flack. At times verging on being disrespectful, and I'll probably get shouted down for that because it felt at times like it was a bit jeering rather than questions. I shouldn't say this in case someone's listening, but I can't help myself. If you get the microphone and an open floor to ask the DVSA any question in the entire world, please don't ask them about 6-point checks. And the answer the DVSA gave explained exactly why you don't ask them about 6-point checks. Just do effective observations was the answer. There was a brilliant question. Well, some really good questions to him. Gary Thomas in particular asked a great question saying, look, basically my part 3 testimony moved. What are we doing about this? He put it a lot more eloquently than I did. But he challenged them in a good way. Rather than jeering, rather than shouting and kicking off or whatever, he actually challenged them in a good way. And I think it was John Sheridan, as you've described me, silver tongue, stood up and apologised and answered well. And do you know what? That felt quite cathartic. Whether it's true or not is almost irrelevant. To have someone stand in front and say, look, I'm sorry. I know that my colleagues are sorry. We've not been good enough.
So the DVSA is not sorry, but he is, which is normally where he's positioned, yeah.
But that's it, Ryder's never said she's sorry. But
yes, she has.
Has she?
Yes, she has. She said that she's sorry in the same way that it's not the DVSA's fault, but she's sorry about it. Yeah.
Did she say she's sorry in the same way Priti Patel said it, which I'm sorry if you've been offended by what I've said?
It often is that, I have so much time for John Sheridan. I think he's really good. He gets it. He's just incredibly good at apologizing on behalf of, and it then means that nothing changes.
Yeah. I did quite like him being there. There was 3, 6, 9, I think, 10 presentations on the DVSA. I felt that if there'd have been less presentations and the DVSA wouldn't have been as good. They also didn't headline. They didn't go on last, which was significant, and I was a big fan of. And I can talk about it when it'll last a minute if you like, but yeah, I wouldn't have been disappointed if they weren't there, but I also wasn't disappointed that they were there. So yeah, there you go.
Oh, cool, good. So who did? Is it headline if they're at the end? I suppose it is, isn't it? Yeah. So who did headline?
Technically, the main event in it if you go on last.
Yeah.
Which is why when I was at the expo last year, I was last in my room, so I classed myself as a main event. Mira Naran, who is a road safety campaigner. So obviously, I'm even more pleased that she went on last. She lost her son to a car crash a while ago. Bad news is that San Harper is no longer the nicest person I've ever met. Mira Naran is. San Harper is now the second nicest person I've ever met. But just a couple of quick interactions. Well, no, I had a quick interaction with her the night before, and she was saying that she was quite nervous about speaking. And I'm like, why? You've spoken in front of hundreds of people across the world. And she's like, yeah, but will driving instructors hang about? Will they be interested? Will they care? And I'm like, yes, the people that here will. Now, she's the only person throughout the entire day that got a standing ovation. So that tells you how much. Now, I was a bit disappointed. I'll hold my hands up. I'm always honest. There were people that left, and I'm understandable to a degree in that it's the end of the day. Some people want to go home, but to me, it's a little disrespectful. If the DVSA stop talking, you get out and leave when there's someone else still to come up. I do think it's a bit disrespectful, but she didn't talk about driving instructor stuff. She spoke about road safety, and she spoke about the 10 things that kept her going. The inspiration side of it, and really good presentation. I had a good chat with her as well, and that's how I found out how lovely she was. And you know what? I'm going to mention this actually because this has stuck with me about being as nice as she was, because she kept giving me compliments, and I'm like, you're making me blush. And she went, the reason I do it is because when my son died, everyone came to me and told me how lovely he was, and I couldn't help but think, why didn't you tell me this 2 weeks ago when he was still here? So she says, I make this conscious effort to say the nice things now. And I thought, what a lovely approach to take. She was keen to come on the podcast. She's very busy, so this might be like an end of year thing, but she's keen to come on. She'd listened to a couple of episodes, which were quite nice. But yeah, big fan of Mira. I haven't previously asked her to come on. And the reason I haven't asked her to come on is because she's someone that's got a team that you need to reach out to.
Right.
And I'm like, I can't be doing with that. But she's like, no, just message me on LinkedIn. It's fine. I'm like, all right, cool. But yeah, loved her, and she went on last, fully deserved. And I much preferred that to the DVSA not being on. But there will be people always that leave after the DVSA, because that's the exciting bit.
Yes. Yeah, I know, and I get it. I think it was just interesting to have an event this year that didn't have DVSA.
Yeah.
Some would say it won't work. And also to fit that in line with what John's saying, that John Sheridan's saying, that we shouldn't be focused on what the DVSA say. It's about what we do. And I go one step further and say that you also have to look at the person who's signing the contract. Do your homework. So if anyone hasn't signed their contract yet, get in touch and just have a chat with someone like myself. Doesn't have to be me, that can point out where the pitfalls are, because I think all of that fits together. But and great to have a road safety focus. It sounds silly to say, doesn't it? Really, you'd think it would naturally be there, but it's not. And I think although it's not always as welcomed it should be as fought for. Yeah, we should consistently make sure it's there. Sometimes it's uncomfortable, but it's a good kind of uncomfort. Discomfort.
It is uncomfortable. It's something that this season of the podcast that it feels like I've spent 11 episodes bitching at myself, because it's like all the stuff I'm talking about to these people, I'm not amazing at, and that doesn't mean I'm not a good instructor. It means there's room for improvement. And you show me someone where there isn't room for improvement, and I'll show you a liar or someone that's deluded. It's the whole thing about responsibility and fault, separate the two, responsibility and fault. But because I'm not perfect, I can always improve, which means I'm taking responsibility. If I go, yeah, but you never made that mistake on lessons, so that can't be my responsibility. Yeah. It probably is a bit somewhere, because you probably could have changed something somewhere. But anyway, that's me getting annoyed now. The other thing I'll mention just on the convention, unless anything else you want to touch on, Chris, is I think part of I really enjoyed this. It's one of the best. I went for the Saturday night and stayed Sunday. So it's one of the best events that I've been to ever. And I think part of that is because it felt different. Yeah. I think if I'd just gone on the Sunday, which was just when the kind of the convention was. So the Sunday was 3 presentations, half an hour break to go to the exhibitors, 3 presentations, hour lunch to go to exhibitors, 3 presentations break, and then wrap up. It would have felt, it still would have been good, still would have enjoyed it. But because I went overnight, I think it felt different. And that the evening was great. I met some great people. Shout out to Rachel Butler, who I'm friends with. She works at the Intelligent Instructor. I said, I'll come as long as you sit me next to you. So we had a good laugh. Got to speak to people like Phil Cowley and Diana Todd and Tom Stenson and Stuart Lockery and other people that I'm not mentioning that I should mention that I've forgotten. So apologies. But just a really, really lovely weekend. And, I'm going to say this about all these, but if you can get to that next year, especially if you can get overnight, do it. You would have loved it, Chris, in particular. And you would have really enjoyed that. I'm not big on the social stuff, but I enjoyed that. It was the right people in the right situation. But even if you just get to the day, really good event, well worth the money. It is paid. I think ticket, you might shout me if I'm wrong with this, but about £100, I think tickets were well worth it, easily worth the money. For the event more than anything. But yeah, so that's kind of my thoughts overall. Actually, do you know what? One thing I forgot to mention from the DVSA. This is why I started making notes so I can refer back to these. One thing I forgot to mention from the DVSA was they did say that they'd planned to do something at the start of the year, but had to stop because everyone got pulled out from management and got put on the roads. And it was changes to the driving test. So they'd planned on removing the normal stop at the side of the road and increasing the length of the independent drive. The idea being that we're doing more driving on test and more independent driving on test, so it's more challenging. Step in the right direction, albeit a baby step, but better than nothing, I suppose. Any thoughts on that, Chris, or anything else you want to touch on with the convention?
No, I think the convention, I just regret not having gone. At the time, it was the right decision. And then I just got to the day and I saw so many people there and pictures going up. I was going, a little bit of me would like to be there. And then I remembered I don't like people anyway, so it's fine. So, but no, it was, yeah, it was nice to see so many people, getting things onto social media and seeing that there was an event happening, because so often these things go past without people realizing. It's amazing how it can be advertised for 6 months and people don't know it's happening. But it's next time, absolutely. I'll leave Kaz on baby duty because she'll be with us by then. So what was the other thing that you were saying? The change to the driving test. So yeah, it's interesting. They're dropping something which is one of the biggest fails on test. So I've always said driving instructors don't stop at the side of the road randomly enough. If we all did it on every single lesson at least once, just a random stop, we would improve things. But they're not the ones that are necessarily turning into the serious crashes. So if we're going to drop something, fair enough. But it seems odd that we're going to be making the test easier to pass if we remove one of the big fails. So
maybe there's a reason that we're removing that big fail.
It would be interesting to see what happens to the pass rate and the waiting list because of it. Although we've already solved that ourselves, so that's fine. I think that would be interesting. Recently, a number of instructors have raised with me that we should be having more of the slow stuff. What they removed from the test by when they brought in the sat nav of going around the awkward turns and doing the slow moving bits, because that's where the instructors are feeling the skill is, and we're not testing the skill because of that, which just seems to be a growing voice. I don't know if I agree with it, but because I see the reasons that they put in the other stuff, and I go back to the crash stats, and they don't tend to be connected, or their observation at junctions. So going from quiet road to busy road is maybe a positive that should be in there. It'll be interesting to see what changes happen, and I'm a massive cynic on why they're doing it.
I don't disagree with anything you've said there. I think that I've not really thought of it in that perspective before. They're moving the normal stop, which is one of the big fails in here, right? I've not connected those dots, but I think one thing that ties in a little bit and is, I would say, as much as 9 times out of 10, that when I get another student from another instructor, the thing they struggle with is moving off and stopping. They'll go nail roundabouts, but they can't move off and stop at side of road. And which ties in exactly what you're saying. And maybe that ties in a bit to that slow moving driving. And from my experience, I get the impression a lot of that is sometimes instructors are worried that students are going to get bored driving in these areas. I think sometimes maybe the students do get bored and kind of pressure the instructors. So maybe that's another time where we have to look at ourselves. Are we spending enough time in these areas? Mm-hmm. I get that. I think that to tie in with what you said as well, it's almost like motorway crashes. Statistically, they're one of the safest roads. But when something goes wrong on there, shit goes down. So it's a bit like we need to make sure we're safe on there. But yeah, either way. Anyway, young driver focus. Sorry, anything else you want to touch on with that convention? Sorry.
No. I look forward to the next one, which we haven't got as long to wait until that, have we?
Well, the expo is on September the 29th. I think it's the 29th. Do you know what? A little plug here.
Very good.
The instructorpodcast.com. I'm reasonable. I can't tell you where, but I can tell you when. I'm going to tell you who. The instructorpodcast.com, go to the events page. The events for 2024 are all mapped out there with links as well, so you can click on and either buy tickets or find more information or whatever it is. Once I get to July, I'm going to start building into 2025 so that we can actually keep a year in advance. But www.instructorpodcast.com, you'll see the events tab. If you're looking on your phone, you'll have to press the little menu icon to bring it up. But yeah, you'll keep all that stuff. I'm pretty sure the expo's on the 29th because the expert session with Lee Sperry is on the 30th and my birthday is on the 1st. So what a little trilogy that is.
Well, yeah, that's a good enough reason to turn up.
Yeah, and avoid my birthday. All right. So young driver focus.
One that I haven't been involved in at all. So why should I?
Oh, that's a good question. I was planning to go next year. I got lucky this year in that because of the work I do with Project Edward. They got in touch with me a few days before and went, "Do you want to come down?" I'm like, "Can't afford it." I'm like, "Oh, we'll cover you." So I'm like, "Okay." So I wound up getting a 5:30 train down. And then getting home at midnight. So it was but why should you go?
Yeah.
This is one of those events where everyone will have a different reason and get different takeaways from it. So I can tell you my takeaways, but I hope that doesn't put you off because I think that anyone that goes will have different things. So for me, I'm not a fan of networking. I need to do it, but I don't enjoy it. But that was a big thing there, but not networking in the sense of getting contacts, although that is part of it, but networking in the sense of you can go and have a 10-minute chat with Dr. Elizabeth Bock or Sean Hellman or Nick Taylor from the DVSA, or even Loveday, was there. She went at the first break, but she was there. You could go and have a 10-minute chat with these people. And I think that's underrated. I think the ability to go and have a conversation with someone about this stuff rather than just listening to them present is really something quite special. But then you've got the presentation. So it was similar to the convention I just spoke about. It was like 3 and then a break and then 3 and then a break. And then I think it was 3 to finish with. And what I quite like about those, again, similar to convention, is that I'm forced to watch some that I wouldn't otherwise have chosen to watch.
Yeah.
And then I'm glad I've watched them. Whereas when you go to the expo, you've got all the ones to choose from. And I usually find I've missed most of them. But when you're forced, you get some really good stuff. So there were some really good presentations there. I'm going to start off with the one that, I hope they're not listening, wasn't so good, which was the DVSA and Loveday Rider. The whole thing was around promoting safe driving and reducing the number of young people killed on UK roads. And Loveday Rider spoke about mock tests and Pass Plus. The less said about the better. The minister for roads or transport, I forget which one was supposed to be there, didn't turn up on the day. We later found out that day they'd called the general election, but I'm still not using that as an excuse because what they're still doing is putting politics and party over people. And I don't buy that. And I think that when you've got, as I mentioned before, the forget-me-not families there, all the people that are supporting this stuff are there. It is a bubble of people that were there because they're all wanting the same thing. And then you've got the Minister for Transport coming and probably saying the opposite. I get why you didn't go. There's every possibility of being booed out of the room. But either way, so it was the connection, it was the presentations. I won't go through them all because I can't remember them all, but a couple that stood out for me. One was, I think it was by the TfL that were talking about some research had done on stopping distances, the 2-second rule in particular, and why after a test, people stop using the 2-second rule. And they spoke to a lot of people that had passed, I think it was 12 months after the test, and spoke about the 2-second rule. And some of the responses they put out were fascinating. There was one lad that said he didn't know how to work out 2 seconds. He does it on 2 car lengths. And I'm thinking that's something that should have been, that's a driving lesson thing that's gone awry. There were other people there that were talking, not other people, that spoke to other people that gave reasons like, when I leave a gap, someone cuts in front of me. My friends are always taking mick, saying that I'm going too slow. The car's behind the tailgating and getting I'm annoyed. And I'm thinking, this is the higher levels of the GDE matrix, the Goals Driver Education. This is why we need to cover this stuff. That is the prime example of why we need to cover it. Because after a test, that is the exact evidence that shows that's what people do. That's where people struggle. And forget calling it the GDE matrix if people don't like the technical stuff. It's why we need to have the conversations about this shit, right? So that was a real highlight for me. That hammered it home. There were some good presentations there. The ones around TikTok and how to use social media. There were stuff around social factors for young drivers, all this kind of stuff. But another one I want to mention specifically that a lot of people will be familiar with is Olly Tayler from The Honest Truth, who had adapted his presentation a bit, still about the honest truth, but the concept of it was driving instructors being the most underused resource or undervalued resource in road safety. And what I particularly want to mention is when he finished, he had time for a couple of questions and someone put their hand up and decided to take the opportunity to really have a bit of a pop at driving instructors. And I think what this guy had done is heard one story and tarred us all with same brush. And to all his credit, let the guy talk, leant forward into his microphone and said something along the lines of, respectfully, I completely disagree. From my experience with working with driving instructors, there's an awful lot that don't do anything that you've just said, and they do everything I've just spoke about. There's a table over there with some driving instructors on, and I know for a fact that they don't do what you just said, and he spent some time bigging us up. That felt good as well, to see that, there are some people that see this brush that we tarred with, and that's a view they have, but others that will back us up. So in terms of why we go, there were some really awesome presentations. You would have enjoyed some of them. Some you would have been riled at, knowing you because I do. But it was a different type of networking, and there were some interesting exhibitors there as well, and a really nice shiny car.
What car?
I don't know. It just looked shiny. You wouldn't have enjoyed the food though. The food, well, it was nice, but it wasn't Chris Bensted quality level buffet.
See, this is, I judge an event on the food that's provided. That's it.
I had a man that nearly knocked a wrap out of my mouth because I thought it was vegan, and he come running over and he's like literally pulling out my mouth saying, "Not vegan, not vegan." I'm like, "Oh, sorry."
Did you have a vegan? How did he know you were vegan? Did you have your vegan T-shirt on?
No, when events like this, if you turn up and you've got dietary requirements, you have to go and tell them. And I'm like, Dr. Elizabeth Box is vegan also. So she went over and asked, and I sort of followed her. And he went, "Oh, no, we haven't got enough for you." I'm like, "Oh, what am I eating?" So anyway, I wandered over and I saw these wraps. I thought, they're vegetarian, not vegan. I thought, they're vegan. And he come over and like bad out of my mouth. And then brought me a plate of what I think was melon. Which I don't like.
I think was melon.
I don't like melon. It will like melon. I'm going to try it. But I always, we're getting into a vegan conversation now, but I always, any event like that I go to, I never expect to eat because I appreciate that I eat differently to most people. So I don't expect people to cater for me. So I just plan on eating and plan on getting some of the way home. So if I get fed, it's a bonus.
I'm the other way around. I demand to be fed. And if I'm not fed, I'm not a happy bunny. So yeah, no, it's one that I think what you showed was we need driving instructors in rooms, and if that's not your thing, that's fine. But support the ones that do it for you on your behalf as driving instructors, because it means that you've got an ear, an eye, and a reputation in a room that Olly couldn't have turned around and said, these people are driving instructors, they're showing the same values as you are, because if we want to share values, we've kind of got to share space as well. So, and we're an unsociable bunch by nature because we, hang about in our own cars and maybe meet at a test centre on occasion if you don't walk the other way and go for a coffee. So, yeah, I think that's, for us collectively, that's so important. So, well done you for going to these three events.
A couple of last things I'll just mention around that Young Driver Focus is that it is expensive. I mean, tickets are a couple £100, and if you're not in London, you're looking at a couple £100 on train tickets. If you want to stay overnight, you're looking at a couple £100 for an hotel, plus you've got the time off work. So there are people that will say, well, you should budget for that within your prices. And I kind of get that, but I also accept that, so I went to these 3 events in 1 month, and I'm lucky enough that I was invited to one and able to, to go to one that didn't cost me all. Yeah. Bought some food after, but whatever, but it didn't cost me all. But if you can, I would suggest trying to get there next year. I think it's a sort of event that everyone would enjoy, would get something from going at least once. But that was interesting. It's also fun getting to speak to people in a non-formal manner. So even though you're there for the presentations, a bit in between, it doesn't have to be formal. So, I made a joke with James Evans, said, "James, I've got a proposal for you." And he's like, "Whatever it is, Terry," the answer is yes. I'm like, "Okay, cool. Right, I'll send you that email then, because I'm going to change it now." And I say getting to have that talk with Liz Box and stuff like that, I think I really would recommend it. I think I'm actually going to try and go to London for a few nights next year and actually make a bit of a trip of it, more for my benefit than the thing. But yeah, all of those I would recommend for very different reasons. And I'm not going to say go to one above the others, but I would try and get to at least one of, in particular, convention or the Young Driver Focus event.
Yes, absolutely. I think cost is prohibitive to instructors because, you say it cost you nothing. You didn't work that day.
Yep.
And, you're still paying for your expenses, business wise and everything else. And so, yeah, days start at what, £200 cost before you've done anything. Just saying I'm not going to go to work that day, has that effect. So I think we need to see value. And especially when you don't go along and get handed, a little basket with 250 quid's worth of value in it, whatever that is, where you've got to go and get it and decide what to do with it. And it doesn't necessarily make your lessons better, doesn't push your price up and get you more in that way. Trying to find what that value is. And on top of that, a lot of the driving instructor industry doesn't like being in a classroom. Education wasn't kind to us. And going along and being lectured at, even though it's really positive and we're on the same side and everything else, it puts people off. So, I think, opportunities are there. We just need to decide which ones we're going to engage with. Maybe exercise classes based on road signs or something. I don't know. Might engage with some of the others that don't feel they want to go and sit in a chair and they'll get fidgety.
Well, I'm going to touch back on that. The idea of being lectured and getting value, I think they're really good points. In particular, the young driver focus did not feel like we're being lectured. That felt more, I'm going to talk about this. I think that the Intelligent Instructor and ADINJC convention felt a little bit more, we should be doing this.
Yeah.
And understandably so, that's not a criticism. But I think the young driver focus didn't. I think in terms of value, it all comes down to what you consider value. If your idea of value is solely what can I get that's going to help me change driving lessons, then maybe not that much value. But if your idea of value is this going to make me think? Am I going to come away more knowledgeable? Am I going to come away inspired? Am I going to come away with more contacts? Am I going to come away with a challenging viewpoint that I can now go away? And I'm going to come away with ideas that I can potentially put in driving lessons or things that I can go and find more about. Then if that's value to you, then 100%. I do think that every instructor will benefit from going, but there'll be more that benefit than others, if that makes sense. If I was ranking them in order of which instructors should prioritize, I'll probably put the convention at the top.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'd probably put Young Driver Focus after that and then RoadPeace, just in terms of how specific it is to what we do. Yes. In terms of how much you care, you'd probably put RoadPeace at the top. But, anyway, what is great is that we have got those. They all come quite quickly in 1 month together, but there are more events going on. As I said, www.instructorpodcast.com. Go to the 2024 tab. You'll see all the events there. And speaking of events, time for the new feature of the show, Chris. Do you want to do me like a jingle or a drum roll or something?
No.
Oh, okay, right.
No, I no. Lyrics, yes, but it's
Right, you can create a rap for the next time we do this. So I'm going to run through quickly the events coming up in June and July, and then Chris, any that catch your eye, just holler. So the 12th of June, we have the ADI WalkBack. The 19th of June is Brakes Kids Walk. Now, if you don't know what this is, every year, thousands of primary school children take part in Brakes Kid Walk to learn the important road safety messages, and it involves thousands of primary school children walking at the same time to promote the health and planet-saving benefits of walking and shout out their rights to make self and health safe and healthy journeys. That's on the 19th of June. On the 1st of July, we've got an expert session with Lee Sperry on risk management. That's over at the Instructor Podcast Premium. On the 9th of July, it's the ADI WalkBack. It's the second Tuesday of every month. That's right, isn't it, Chris?
It is, yep. Yes.
So that's the 12th of June and the 9th of July. On the 10th and 11th of July, we've got the Road Safe Technology Live, which is a 2-day event covering all the latest tech in road safety. And then on the 15th of July, the ADI Book Club with Phil Cowley. And on the 24th of July, we've got another expert session for the premium with Chris Bensted, talking risk management, conversation and Q&A. Any of those catch your eye, Chris?
Yeah, I need the last one. I need to make sure it's in my diary. I'll just check. Love hearing what Lee has to say. He has his own unique way of putting things. So it's always interesting to listen to. And the WalkBack, I'm just really proud of what everyone else has done. The idea, great. It was out there and see what happens with it. The way that certain individuals have absolutely embraced it and it's made a difference. And there's repeat offenders coming back each month. and we're getting to have those conversations that we probably should but never have. The real stuff. Yeah, awesome. If you haven't, if you haven't got one near you, reach out, because somebody out there in your local area will want to. They just haven't been asked yet. So yeah, find a place to meet up. Second Tuesday, and absolutely. And then the kids walk sounds interesting. And, I instantly wondered whether there's something we as a community could do to kind of engage with that a bit more. Because they're one of the biggest risks that we face out on the road. I don't know about you, but I've had plenty of moments where I've sworn loudly as I've braked with someone running out in front of me, because they move fast. Those kids, and I'm just very aware of it. I've also seen the change in pupils when during their journey they announce that they're having a baby, during their driving lessons, and particularly the guys. Actually, you see their attitude towards buggies, pushchairs, and kids change. And I think it just shows us one of those things where you can make massive psychological changes with people. You've just got to push the right buttons. And yeah, I wonder what we could do. Answers on a postcard. Would love to hear from people.
Well, I think that regarding the brake stuff, it's interesting you say that, because for years, there's a lot of students that have said to me they become better pedestrians as a result of becoming a driver. But we don't necessarily get better drivers because we're pedestrians, which is an interesting way to look at it. But yeah, all the stuff you can find on Brake out the Brake website. Again, I'll put links to this in the show notes. But I think that might be something that needs to be done. You mentioned the word community, within local communities rather than nationwide for instructors. But again, great opportunity for instructors to get involved. Imagine, I don't know if this is possible, by the way, but imagine if you were able to provide, like high-vis bibs or jackets for the kids in your local school with your driving school name on.
Yeah.
That's promotion for your driving school, better than anything else you could imagine it in many ways. Imagine those kids taking or t-shirts from, Brake, Walk with TC Drive or whatever it is. That'll be quite cool. I'm getting ideas now. But yeah, the expert session, we have scheduled that in. And the walkback, just a quick one. And at the risk of putting you on the spot, you said about shouting people out. Anyone specific that you want to give a shout out to?
For the walkback, yes, absolutely. Emily Kroll in the Isle of Wight, they have 2 walkbacks. They don't just have one. You could criticise their indecisiveness that they couldn't decide between morning and evening. But the weather hasn't been in our favour, I have to say. Any day of the month that you want to book a holiday, don't pick the second Tuesday, because generally it has been a bit wet in some places, if not all of them. But Emily Kroll in the Isle of Wight and the team around her, because it's not ever just the one instructor. There's others, but they're the names that I'm not good with names, but they're the names that I remember. Phil Cowley as well has had people out and about down there. And another name I'm just searching for because it's gone out of my head. But those that, if you have a look on the Walkback page on Facebook, the people that are named on there with pictures on there that have gone out and done it, I've had people get in touch and ask about posters, and they are available should you want one. Just trying to sort out, now that the DVSA is settled, we'll get them officially authorised, because that was a challenge. And yeah, I think there's loads. I apologise. I'm really bad with names. I struggle every time. So thank you for putting me on the spot. And if it's you, you know that it's you that I mean. So thank you.
I mean, it says Terry Cook on the Zoom in front of you. You could have easily just said, "Oh yeah, Terry, you're doing a nice job too." But whatever. Thanks.
You are. No, you have. I love the way that you've done your roam with Terry, go to a different place each time, and this is what I like. I get criticised sometimes for being an ideas factory that then chucks it out there and sees what happens. My business partner Ian calls it a hand grenade. I just come along and I chuck it out and see what happens. I love it because sometimes it just hits right, and there is no purpose to it. There's no end goal except for let's make the world a better place. So everyone who's done it in their own way, even if you've just gone out and walked the dog on your own, but because of WalkBack, awesome. Love you.
That's going to be our boxed name now. Chris, the idea grenade Bensted. Just before we move on, you mentioned Phil Cowie there. I want to give a shout out to Phil because I did tell him and I'd plug the Inspired training courses, the live events that he's doing, especially one in Leeds, and I've completely forgotten. So allow me to plug it now. Go and check out the Inspired website. You'll find a link in the show notes. It looks like I've had some really good feedback from their in-person sessions, their classroom sessions. So go and check them out. And if you're listening, Phil, I will get it plugged at some point, I promise. But let's talk a little bit about CPD because this seems to be bubbling up again. It's always there, kind of simmering under the surface, but every now and again it bubbles up. And I think that there's two questions that seem to poke their head up. One is, what is CPD? And the second is, should it be regulated by the DVSA? So there you go, Chris. Two questions for you. Take of them what you will.
I think there's different levels of CPD. For me, CPD is the mental version of exercise. So you can just get off your ass and get off the sofa and do a few extra steps, rather than just sitting down, go for a walk around the block, which will do you good, but it's not going to make you fit. It's not going to build your muscles and have you looking chiseled as both of us all naturally are born lucky and already look that way. No, so I think you absolutely can say CPD is looking at a DVSA email or go up a level from that, going to a convention and spending the day picking up on those things, or investing in a longer term course. Those kind of levels of thing, all of that CPD, absolutely. But I think sometimes we then devalue the things that actually are giving us new skills. So I would assess it more in the way of the Part 3 standards check approach of going, was there a goal? Did you have something that you were trying to achieve? Did you have to put some kind of investment into it? That doesn't just have to be financial. There's loads of really good free CPD around. But is there an investment of time and or money into it? And at the end, were you better than you were at the beginning? And I think looking at it with that approach, if you're not better at the end than you were at the beginning, then you're coasting through CPD just to make yourself feel better, at the risk of offending people. You want to be challenging yourself in some way. So betterment, that's what I want to see when we talk about CPD. This is why I'm really scared of the DVSA treading on CPD.
Can I just step in there?
Yeah.
Just before we get on to DVSA regulating bit, I love that description of it. I think that's a really good description. I may take that clip and use it elsewhere, but in particular, I like the gym analogy. I think that works really well. You think of a gym, if you go to the reception of a gym, you are still going to the gym. You are kind of partaking in CPD. Is it going to make a blind bit of difference? Probably not. You could go to the gym and you could watch some kind of class being taken, and you can learn from that. You could then come home and practice it by yourself. Is it effective as doing the class? No, it's not. What's going to be the most effective thing at the gym? When you go 3 times a week, participate in that particular exercise and have someone helping you. So if you use that analogy, I think that works beautifully. That's how you then get those muscles and that definition, and you become fit and healthy and fine specimens like yourself, Chris. Or if you just turn up to me, go to reception and get a Lucozade and then go, you're going to wind up looking like me. And I think that if you look at CPD the same way, I think that's it. And I think sometimes that term CPD it's almost used incorrectly. It's the D, it's the development. Because if I say this podcast is CPD, I'm correct. There's someone that develops from listening to it.
Mm-hmm.
If someone got it on, doesn't pay any attention, it's not development for them. It's not CPD for them. CPD is what you make of it, I think. And it may be someone listens to this episode, and there might be some person that goes, "This is great. I'm going to go do this, this, and this. And I'm going to go on Chris Bensted's standards check course. It's not a standards check course. I'm going to go and sign up to the premium. I'm going to do this thing every week." And then there may be other people that go, "That was a good idea. I'm going to go do that." And everywhere in between. And that's what development is, what you make of it. And this will be great for some people. It won't for others. And I think I love that analogy. And I think that gym analogy worked perfect. We can make that into something long term. But yeah, I just wanted to say that. But I'll let you, as you were with the DVSA and regulation.
I think it's just that, isn't it? That if the DVSA tell us what is going to be developmental for us, firstly, their job is minimum standards. Not a criticism, statement of fact. That's what they do. So they are going to look at minimum standards, and we are then going to do minimum CPD. It's either going to be you've got to do X number of hours, or they're going to tell us what we're allowed to do and what counts. And that's the point at where I'm not interested. I don't want them to tell me what I need to do. I want to do it because I know I need to. That it's got to be my choice, because otherwise I'm not going to invest. And for people to invest, it's got to be worthwhile, And the second, like it or not, the second that DVSA is attached to something, the vast majority will then assume that it's a waste of time. So we're going to, it's always that, we don't like the oversight. I think that's going to be the biggest challenge, is that people, if you're not doing it by choice, then you're not going to get involved. And if you think about the same as a pupil, if you've got a learner driver who's being sent for lessons but does not want to learn to drive, good luck.
I think I disagree with you, and because I've changed my mind on this. I used to have exactly the same opinion as that, and I'll tell you why. And I accept everything you've said, by the way. I disagree, but don't think you're wrong. If you can do this, in that, like you said, the DVSA, it's the minimum standard. So the minimum standard for any CPD at the minute is nothing. As a driving instructor, you don't have to do all. So if the DVSA was to come in and set something, then they are raising the standards. And there will be driving instructors out there that have never done any form of CPD. Well, or maybe they do CPD and don't realize it because they engage in Facebook conversation or whatever, but they actively don't do anything or try not to do anything, that are now forced to do something to keep their badge. And in the same example you gave for the learners that don't want to learn to drive, they still learn, just nowhere near as efficiently. And, so that will raise the standard of the, I shouldn't say this, but we're at end, there's less people going to be listening. It will raise the standard of the bottom of the barrel. A rising tide lifts all ships is a phrase, isn't it? So I think from that perspective, I quite like the idea of the DVSA getting on board. I also think that if you look at the people that invest in themselves now, so whether it's coming to the DITC or joining your course or going on Inspire, I'll mention it again because they'll get unplugged their workshops or the premium concept, whatever. These people are always going to go above and beyond. These are the people already going above and beyond. They may go to the DVSA's recommended stuff to begin with because it's like, oh, well, the DVSA have said this, but they'll probably soon find out that, oh, actually, this is pretty dull. This is just standards check stuff. I'm going to go back to what I was doing before. So I don't think it would pull anyone down, but I think it would raise some of the people up.
I would say that all the evidence is against you. So the same as if we bring in a minimum number of hours for people learning to drive, it will be the worst thing that we've done because people will do the minimum. So if we say you've got to go on these courses, I don't think the majority will go, oh, I enjoyed those courses to start with. Even if they do enjoy those courses, which is down to us, the people that deliver them, assuming we're allowed to deliver them because we might not qualify, because the DVSA might set a bar that says that you need a degree to deliver the training? We don't know, and it's the unknown that's the problem. I don't think they will, but if they did, they'll go to that training and go, I've done my CPD, that's it. No, thank you. I'm not doing more than I have to. And they won't go on to find the really awesome stuff that's out there, which they could have gone in the first place if there wasn't a diktat for what qualifies. So I think, for me, it would be a massive negative, because we've seen time and time again that people will do, if you set a minimum, they'll do a minimum. How many people do more than 40 hours to get a pink badge?
But we're talking about the minimum. How can I phrase this? We're talking about the people that are coming in that are doing the minimum anyway. So if the minimum anyway is 0, by forcing them to do something, we're raising their standard. And look, I'm only talking from my experience. If you've got evidence that shows otherwise on a broader scale, that's fine. But from my experience, I don't envisage people stopping listening to the podcast or not signing up to premium. And the people that I work with in my driving lessons, I don't see it. I would say 9 out of 10 of them, I wouldn't see them going, oh, well, the minimum's 40 hours, so I'll have to stop at 40.
They're 1 out of 10 of the industry.
Yeah, but we're not reaching those other 9 anyway. So that's what I'm making.
But that's what CPD should be doing if the DVSA are going to get involved. And I actually think that you've overestimated what the standard is at the moment, because the standard is actually enough to be successful at the standards check. And there's people falling short of that.
Yeah.
So they're not even doing the bare minimum, which is already set. So, and they'll go and do that standard check 3 times and then blame the DVSA for the fact they can't teach anymore. So, and I'm all for it. I'm all for clear out the deadwood, have amazing instructors. Everyone should be great, because of all those things we've spoken about today, where it's more about keeping people alive and safe for me than it is about getting people, a driving license, passing a test. I'm vehemently against that, the pass a test focus, but I don't think that it will have a positive result.
I think I'm looking at it from a scientific perspective. I'm just thinking it would hopefully raise the bottom of the barrel. I think that it would be great if the DVSA come in and did something awesome, and said, we're not going to tell you what is CPD, but we are going to expect you, maybe this would work. We're not going to tell you to do a minimum number of hours, but we are on that engagement call. We're going to be asking what CPD you've done. And we expect something that seems impressive. Maybe you might have to define it. I don't know. But maybe that would work, because then that's encouraging people to go out there and find what's there. I think I'd be less happy about them defining what is CPD and what isn't. I'd be more on board with them saying, this is the minimum you need to do. And whether that's a number, whether it's you need to present to us what you've done, whether it's a register where they open up and they say, look, you go online and you mark down all the CPD you've done, or whether it's, Dan Hill made this point. Well, lots of people make this point, but Dan Hill shouts about it more because it's Dan Hill. It's only CPD if you take action on it. And that goes back to what I was saying about the gym. If you go to the gym every week for a year and your body's no different, you're not doing the gym very well. If you do CPD every week for a year and you're not doing anything differently, you're not doing your CPD very well. So maybe it's what we show from it rather than what we do. Maybe that's the thing. What changes have you made as a result of this CPD you've just told me? Maybe that needs to be the question the DVSA asks.
Yeah, I would hope they would, but I'm cynical.
I also think, and I think this is maybe the last thing I want to touch on, unless you want to cover anything here, I don't think it's black and white. I think there's loads of grey areas in this whole thing. And I think that when you get people shouting online saying it is black and white, I think they're the people that I'd probably suggest you avoid. I think that we need a bit more openness in this industry. And I'm going to take a moment. Actually, I wasn't going to do this, but I will. I'll take a moment because we've got 3 minutes to spare, Chris, before you have to go. To give a little shout out to Gary Thomas, who I'm planning on meeting for the next ADI WalkBack. But also, we referred to the the Instructor podcast recently as more than just CPD. That's my tagline going forward. That's what I'm referring to as now. It's more than just CPD. I like that. Anything else that you want to touch on that we've covered today, Chris?
No, I think that, as always, you've beautifully summarised everything, and we will wait to watch and see what the DVSA decide to deliver to us and when, because I think it'll be a while yet.
Right, well, in which case, do you want to take a moment just to remind people where they can find you?
The easiest place is theditc.co.uk. And you can reach me through there or through Theory Test Explained on pretty much all of your social medias. And that's my @, as I've been told I've got to say it. Theory Test Explained is my @. And I look forward to hearing from you all. I hope you have a lovely summer.
Cool. And you can find more from me at www.theinstructorpodcast.com. Remember, find the events page for all the stuff coming up. You can find the Vision Zero page for all the resources around there for road safety that we can use. And find the premium content as well and go and sign up for that. But big thank you for joining me today, Chris. Always a pleasure.
The Instructor Podcast with Terry Cook. Talking with leaders, innovators, experts and game changers about what drives them.